Uchiha Madara and Hashirama team up for ultimate battlefield domination. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 81 Ninja Shura. The fire is extinguished, but the world is destroyed. Coalition forces desperate. Now. In the battle with Suban. This terrifying sense of oppression had penetrated deep into their bones and carved into their genes, making them dare not even continue to fight with Suban. Of course, these people are also players from all over the world, and they can also be regarded as the elites of various countries. No matter how frightened they were in their hearts, they had to show their momentum, burst out all their strength, and engage in a fierce battle with Suban, who had already rushed into their camp. Broken. Suddenly, countless players were hit by Suban's blow and flew out from a distance. At this time, the battlefield seemed to have become Suban's Shuluo slaughterhouse. Show the name of Uchiha Ban's Ninja Shura. At this moment, Suban can be said to be the focus of the world. The eyes of tens of billions of people are all staring at Suban for an instant. This scene immediately made all the Dragon Kingdom people collectively boil again. Sleepy Hollow, I feel like the big guy Suban seems to be stronger than before. He can be so strong without skills. If he uses skills, he will have to. Is this the so-called flat AA big move? It seems that the big guy Suban hit the black coffin of the S-level skill card and was not seriously injured, right? After all the various A-level and S-class treasure chests that have passed through the national transport embargo before and are already very invincible, then he must still have two brushes. Haha, the Suban big guy we are familiar with who keeps abusing dishes and easily killing ordinary rookies is back. This is what our Dragon Kingdom calls flying flowers and falling leaves, and they can hurt people. Suban gangsters want to fight 10 wrong, to fight 100. At this time, the Dragon Kingdom audience, after seeing Suban's peerless mode, once again regained a little confidence. It seems that their Suban can still play a heavy role. Although the foreign audience's face is not very good looking, they also immediately speak hard here. We've only just started fighting, so what's so proud of Suban's mighty wind? It's just to fight some miscellaneous soldiers, our main force has not yet come on the field, you are so quick to be proud, immediately get punched in the face. After all, Suban has killed several A-level fierce beasts, and it is understandable that he has such a little strength. But then it's time for us John Bull countrymen to show up and see how they can kill your players completely. I think he is already at the end of the crossbow, and he can't support it for long. How can the players who have been washed by our shuffled ducks still fight for a long time using the S-level skill card Black Coffin? They find excuses for their own players, still unwilling to admit and believe in the strength of Suban. They always tell themselves firmly, the five-power alliance will inevitably defeat Suban. In the middle of the battlefield at this time, Suban is still in the midst of a big kill. In close combat, there was a swordplay master who also wanted to rely on the advantage of weapons to slash at Suban with his sword. But Suban dodged his attack and snatched the sword from his hand at the same time, and began to teach him what is the real swordplay. Subsequently, Suban began to dance even more wildly. He kept shuttling through the crowd, slashing and slashing, from Yokozuna. The sword and light sword shadow flashed a terrifying light, taking away the lives of countless people. What Suban relies on at this moment is only the most basic physical quality. In the face of Suban's dazzling sword technique, the players on the battlefield all screamed and cried bitterly, and they simply lost the courage and confidence to continue fighting with Suban. At best, these heavy cavalry units only wanted to use the charge to defeat Suban. As soon as he arrived in close combat, he immediately became a weak person without the strength of a chicken, and could only be slaughtered by Suban. After seeing Suban's God of War move, there was a person who was frightened and scattered, and he thought that he was powerless and could only make a desperate bet. He threw several grenades directly at Suban, trying to blow Suban at close range. But Suban still had an indifferent face, accurately grasping the situation of the entire battlefield and not being moved at all. He still threw himself into the battle, seemingly ignoring the grenade that was about to explode, and at one point made the grenade thrower extremely ecstatic. But at the moment when the grenade was about to explode, Suban directly kicked the grenade and made it return to the same way. The grenade thrower was terrified and wanted to make a shout, but he didn't even have time to scream, and the grenade suddenly exploded. Rumble. The flames soar into the sky and completely devour it. The grenade thrower suffered his own consequences, and he and his companions around him were instantly blasted to pieces. The other side. The strong man in the rear of the 5 major alliance forces saw Suban so heroically killing the enemy. The expression on his face is also very ugly. Suban faced these players of the 5 major alliances. It was like a wolf into a flock, slaughtering at will. They had to admit that Suban really didn't look like someone who could deal with it casually. If he continues to fight, these weak players will only die in vain. It seems that it is still necessary to have a strong player to play. The death of players from these countries is also a fatal blow to their countries, which will instantly lose countless resources. Then these powerful countries who encouraged them to participate in the battle against Suban might be blamed. At this time, the Gallic Chicken Country players immediately began to use their character skill cards to begin to fully demonstrate their strength. 2 people had already been eager to try it out, and they rushed out to fight against Suban. They took out the 2 S-class character cards that they had exchanged for the previous Gaul Chicken Kingdom's sacrifice national fortune. S-class Dragon Knight. S-class Paladins. Then he said, "Dear Dragon Knight, I will use your strength to defeat the powerful enemies of the Dragon Kingdom in front of me. Dear Paladin, please give us your strength. I will purify the filthy enemies before my eyes with your holy light." After using these skill cards, the Gallic Chicken Kingdom players representing the Paladins were suddenly enveloped in a bright holy light. After feeling the bath of the holy light, behind him an illusory golden yellow micromemory appeared. The Paladin suddenly felt like he had help. And the long sword in his hand also suddenly erupted into a dazzling golden light, and the silver-white sword body became golden throughout. After gaining this immense power, the Paladin was overjoyed and looked forward to launching a holy blow to Suban in order to make a name for himself. After using the Dragon Knight card, a Gallic Chicken countryman received the blessing of mysterious power, and the whole person instantly expanded several times. His muscles were high and bulging, and his skin turned black, emitting a cold luster like metal. Obviously, his physical strength has been greatly strengthened. Under the crotch of the Dragon Knight, an earth dragon suddenly appeared as a mount. This earth dragon was nearly 10 meters tall, its eyes were cold, and its body emitted a fierce atmosphere. It has giant claws with shiny iron feet and is covered with extremely hard scales. On its back, it has wings several meters long, and with a single flick, it can set off a storm of wine. With the appearance of the earth dragon, the Dragon Knight's whole body was full, and a monstrous killing chi emerged like a tide. Long Wei covered the players around him, making everyone feel faintly frightened. Moreover, the Paladin next to the Dragon Knight also chanted in his mouth, "Light is my strong faith and the source of my strength, go for it. My companions, under the support of faith, my holy light will always be protected," accompanied by his solemn and sacred chanting. Countless mysterious rune cultures slowly converged into the Paladin himself and the Dragon Knight's body. The comfort of soaking in a hot spring also pours into all parts of their bodies. Feel the blessing power of your companion so powerful, and see such a tall and mighty. The dragons of the earth, the Dragon Knights of this Gallian Chicken country, were very satisfied. Then, he took the lead. Ride this gigantic earth dragon with an incredible momentum. The Dragon Knight set off first and rushed directly in the direction of Suban. Pedal. The footsteps of the earth dragon are like thunder, constantly roaring, which can be described as earth-shaking. The earth dragon and the Dragon Rider 11 brought countless smoke and dust along the way. Like an army of 100 people, the momentum was mighty, crushing at Suban, and after approaching Suban, the Dragon Knight held a heavy spear up to 10 meters long. He also began to aim straight at Suban. With the help of the power of this charging thunder 10,000 hooks, Suban barrel was directly out of a large cave. Suban was still in the process of fighting countless heavy cavalry at this time. These vanguard troops were basically running out and were slaughtered by Suban. At this time, Suban, the eternal kaleidoscope riding wheel eye, has been running at high speed. The whole movement of the entire battlefield was grasped in it, and naturally, the Earth Dragon Knight who charged over was also seen. But he didn't even look at it. Instead, they continued to destroy the enemies near them. This kind of wordless contempt made the Dragon Knights of this Gaul Chicken country even more indignant. The fierce light in his eyes made him even more determined to kill Suban completely, and when the Dragon Knight smiled wildly and the heavy spear in his hand was about to barrel to where Suban was, although Suban didn't even look at him, he suddenly reached out his hand and grabbed the spear with great accuracy. This Dragon Knight, who was as unstoppable as a chariot, was actually stopped by Suban. Rumble. Suban's seemingly mantis arm blocking the car actually worked. How powerful was the Earth Dragon with such a large size and such amazing speed? But at this moment, I couldn't even move forward in an instant. It can be said that it is a husband and wife, and it is impossible to open it. In addition, all the potential energy from the Earth Dragon and the Dragon Knight's collision was instantly transformed into a wave of earth-shattering energy, which swept around to look around. Several weak players who were still fighting nearby were directly swept away by hundreds of meters. Even the Dragon Knight himself, because of the sudden breaking, could only rely on his own body to dissolve the reaction force of this momentum. Even the highly enhanced Dragon Knight couldn't help but churn his internal organs involuntarily, as if hit by a heavy hammer, and directly spit out a mouthful of blood. However, Suban, who caused all this, still stood in place, and his body did not waver in the slightest. It was as if he had only stopped a small child, not a terrifying dragon knight who had charged hundreds of meters until this moment. Subankai slowly turned his head and looked at this dragon knight with an indifferent face. "Do you want to dance too?" The dragon knight, who was still high above, was only suddenly shocked by Suban's amazing power. The expression on his face was low, and he didn't know what to say. The next moment, Suban immediately clenched his spear firmly and then threw it in the opposite direction. Acting like a meteor hammer, he dragged the dragon knight 10 meters away and slammed it in the other direction. The dragon knight was still clutching a heavy spear in his hand, and he was taken over with a look of pity. Bang! The dragon knight collided with the ground, smashing the ground directly into a huge pit several meters deep. The cobweb-like crack immediately spread densely throughout the huge pit, and also extended tens of meters away. The dragon knight was devastated, and blood spurted from his mouth. He didn't expect that he would be so vulnerable in front of Suban. This earth dragon saw the tragic situation of the knight, and also roared, and wanted to rush over and hit Suban. But Suban had already turned his spear again, and then directly inserted itself in the direction of the earth dragon in the suddenly enlarged eyes of the earth dragon, straight into its mouth. The entire heavy spear penetrated the earth dragon's body, directly from the other end of its body. The earth dragon was crucified in place. The earth dragon's pupils dilated sharply, and its eyes quickly turned white. Its face was still full of pain, sadness, but it was also helpless to Suban. Just by looking at it, it had been completely killed by Suban. The process of the dragon knight's attack and defeat only took a second, and at this moment, the paladin who was following behind was still very shocked. He had been using the holy light to bless the dragon knight, greatly improving his abilities in all aspects. But even so, can't it cause Suban a little damage? He also had to let go of his contempt for Suban, and immediately stopped moving. His face solemnly began to wait for the arrival of his companions. And after that, the masters of the Gallic chicken country, the John cow country, the Germanic country, the washing duck, the Italians, and other powerful countries, all came. The expression on their faces is no longer full of confidence, but instead they must be cautious and cautious. They must unite and do their best to fight a big battle with Suban. Justin, a Germanic player in a steel suit, first launched an artillery attack on Suban. From all over his body, countless cannon fire ports suddenly appeared, and then several weapons of different shapes protruded. Dada! Boom boom boom! Countless dense shells rained down on Suban. The huge explosion immediately exploded near Suban. Suban easily dodged and did not directly hit the gun. And under the action of the shock wave, Suban also counted down 1 meter in the trend. Then looked indifferently at the person who attacked him. The people of the Five Great Powers Alliance, at this time, still looked at Suban viciously, and the hunter directly scolded in a frenzy. Weak mortal bodies, or submit to the power of our gods. Let me show you how remarkable the power of my magic really is. Let me completely freeze you arrogant mortal into an ice sculpture. Don't look down on us. Let me blast you straight into coke. Suban indifferently glanced at these ants. Very good. You use your skills first. Being able to escalate the flames of war, your door is indeed very courageous. After such an idea, Suban immediately began to seal his hands, concentrating the fire chakra in his mouth, and then spewing out a fierce sea of fire from his mouth. Fire escape. The fire is extinguished. This was Suban's massive flame attack. It is the most suitable fire escape technique for Suban for AoE. Under his attack, it was like a sea of magma fire, roaring past, suddenly coming. Suddenly, the entire white ice and snow battlefield was reflected in a red light by Suban's attack. All the 5 major alliance forces looked at this sea of fire with shocked faces, and they were about to be swallowed up by Suban's flames. Seeing this terrifying and earth-shattering attack, all the players lost their voices and screamed. Sleeper, this Su really can use magic. Did he also eat the natural fruit of the demon lineage? The information given by the top level of the state before Suban did mention that he would use fire, but I didn't expect it to be so powerful. The contestant who ate the frozen fruit, Jones of John Cow Country, immediately bore the brunt of it and began to face it head-on. Ice Cube Pheasant Mouth. At Jones's urging, a giant iceberg condensed and shot out at the sea of fire. The cold ice chi that moved the earth quickly began to sweep in, trying to completely freeze Suban's flames. But under the overwhelming flame attack of Suban, Jones was shocked. He found his chill so insignificant. Whether it is quality or quantity, it is far inferior to the flame of Suban. At best, it can only slow down the offensive a little. There is simply no way to freeze it completely. The gap is huge. Episode 82, the two sides began to make a big move. Susanoo swept the battlefield. Jones, a player who had always thought that he could sweep the battlefield with the frozen fruit, was also shocked at this time. He didn't expect that the first time he used the frozen fruit, he would be unfavorable. The power of the fire was unleashed and poured out unscrupulously, extending in all directions. The moment the flames touched the ice cubes, it was like destroying the ice cubes, evaporating the ice cubes on the spot. You can't even see the process of melting into water. Jones, the frozen fruit ability, saw the situation and could only continue to do his best to transform all his strength into more ice waves. He cried out in his heart, "What kind of monster is this Suban? It was such a terrible flame. And it spits it out of its mouth. Is Suban a humanoid self-propelled volcano?" Seeing that something was wrong, Jones took a few steps back and shouted. Everyone also helped to attack, I can't cope with it alone. At this time, the other players also started to shoot with shock. They were all very clear at this point. To deal with a strong enemy like Suban, you must join forces. They were still thinking of easily defeating Suban before, and it seemed that they were really just delusional. The strong people close to the front, especially those who could resist the fire escape technique, all shot at each other. Even those who are not strong enough, but have obtained some water escape art scrolls and other things, at this time, immediately use it. Counteract Suban's terrorist attacks as much as possible. Some people channel psychics out of the water system psychic beasts. Launch a water attack on Suban to counteract the damage. Otherwise, the combined forces of their 5 major powers will inevitably be completely destroyed. Juju. Whoops. The overwhelming water was also surging and flooded directly towards Suban's fire. But the expressiveness may not be as good as Jones's frozen fruit, which quickly evaporates into a mist of water. In local areas, the impact of water waves and fire waves directly produces a doomsday-like scene. Cloud steaming mist. Miasma. The water mist spread over the battlefield. And it's a mist of water with a scorching heat. Many people did not dare to breathe heavily, so as not to burn their lungs. In addition, countless people have begun to show their magic. Lewis, a rustling fruit player, also uses his own sand to find ways to extinguish these flames. But in terms of scale, it is visible to the naked eye far less than the flame. It doesn't play a role in extinguishing the flames at all. At best, it can only slow down the spread of flames and fight for the opportunity for the 5-power alliance to escape. And the owner of the steel suit who just wanted to show his magic could only fly into the air at this time, and saw the 5-nation alliance army at the bottom of Zhonghuang, with a helpless face. In this way, under the defense of countless people, Suban's fire escape technique finally stopped the indomitable posture. However, under the collision of water vapor and flames, the entire environment has become extremely harsh. All kinds of things that Suban had burned in the fire, sand, water vapor, dirt, etc., all mixed together, choking with bad smell. The characteristics of cold areas such as snow and ice on the ground have disappeared. The ground revealed cracks, as if it was just an ordinary desert place, which was the power of Suban. Enough to change the local terrain and climate in an instant. In the real world. Seeing this familiar scene, countless Dragon Kingdom audiences were excited and began to shout. Haha, here it is again. We Suban crushed the general battle. This is our Suban gangster. Suban is really still so powerful, it really makes my blood boil. Come on, we must teach these unscrupulous foreigners a lesson so much about challenging our Dragon Kingdom players. And with so many people being used insidiously to beat them up, they have to let them know how wrong their decisions are. The old woman who uses the black coffin, hurry up and get rid of it before the other side. After seeing these scenes, countless foreigners felt very uncomfortable again. Damn, has this Suban always been so strong? Is he showing enough? When will it be time to stop? Our players have already launched such a terrible magic attack, is there still no way to take him? Is this the power of the legendary ancient kingdom of the East? What kind of people are we against? Oh, you dragon people, don't be too proud, our players have not yet officially exerted their strength, and if they all shoot, you will definitely not be able to fight. None of them was willing to accept Suban's victory over their fate at this time. I look forward to the official rise of their country's players soon and start their big show. Absolutely cannot let Suban continue to be proud of it. They consume a lot of national luck and let their players get so many rewards at all costs. It is to let them defeat Suban and get the reward of the Dragon Kingdom. You must know that in the hearts of these Europa leagues, this world originally belonged to these Western powers. After the rise of the Dragon Kingdom, they were already very unhappy with the existence of the Dragon Kingdom. The Dragon Kingdom has risen in an unstoppable way and has been provoking their country. The industry is also developing so rapidly that a variety of products have greatly reduced production costs. The invention of various developed country pulverizers. All kinds of competitiveness to seize their products. All these kinds of behaviors make them completely unable to accept it. So in the face of this life and death competition of national fortunes, they must win. Otherwise, in the future, there will be no place for these Western countries. They absolutely could not allow their vested interests to be taken away by the Dragon Nation. In the national embargo, the battlefield that had been baptized by Subanhuo was smog and very humid. While these players were still screaming bitterly, another earth-shaking sound suddenly sounded. In this extremely low visibility environment, dozens of red flames suddenly appeared, as if a meteor had fallen. This is Suban's fire escape Dragon Yensong technique. Under this sudden attack, countless people were extremely embarrassed. Some were directly blown up tens of meters away, and some were directly burned to the point of howling. The frozen fruit ability resists these meteor-like fire attacks. On the one hand, the frozen gas is also used to help the recruited person cool down. In this chaotic battlefield, the blows of Suban's body technique and the fierce cries of the players being knocked away were clearly audible. His eternal kaleidoscope riding wheel eyes, in this confused environment, can also be seen incomparably. The flow of energy of each person is so clear in Suban's eyes. Their defenses and attacks could not conceal Suban at all. After a period of hectic chaos, countless strong people were barely able to adapt to such a harsh environment and began to find ways to counterattack Suban. Jones, who has the ability to freeze fruits, can't even bother to save those companions, and directly attacks Suban. Several ice balls burst out towards Suban, and a few strands of cold chill that penetrated into the bone marrow suddenly surged and passed by in an instant. Seeing such an attack, Suban did not dare to trust it, and first gave in to observation. And at this time, Lewis, who has the ability to sand and fruit, also began to mobilize his own sand and attack Suban at a high speed. Under his mobilization, these sands seemed to have life, changing various forms at any time and anywhere to attack Suban. At this time, he had already used the power of the rust of fruit to the extreme, and it could also pose a certain threat to Suban. Whoosh! These sands followed like shadows, chasing after Suban. Suban did not have the ability to understand these people now, but he would not be so reckless to fight with them. So start taking the form of wandering, to observe slowly. At this moment, the paladins of the Gaul Chicken Kingdom stared at Suban fiercely, and suddenly used a floating magic. The blade of the empty blade. A holy and dazzling wave of holy light cross energy burst out, hitting Suban and lifting Suban directly into the air. Although the damage was not high, it made Suban fall into an extremely unfavorable position. At the same time, Iron Man in steel armor has flown into the air, ready to strike Suban in the air. Densely packed missiles fired out again, completely enveloping Suban in it. Bang! 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 Ha ha ha! Go to hell! Show you how powerful we Germanic. However, in the face of this seemingly sharp attack, Suban was still very indifferent to this, and the eternal kaleidoscope riding wheel eye began to rotate. Airplanes! Suban began to unleash his own Susanoo. It's time to get real. Followed by a huge blue giant appeared directly out of thin air, shielding Suban in midair and blocking all of Iron Man's missiles. Rumble! 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 These missiles began to explode in a continuous stream, but after the smoke cleared, the crowd was surprised to find out. Even such an intensive artillery attack only caused some damage to Suban's Susanoo, and could not let him be completely breached. Seeing the sudden appearance of the blue giant, countless players in the field, instantly dumbfounded. Ah! What is this weird pattern? It should be the information I received before, which is one of Suban's abilities, similar to the Gundam, allowing himself to fight in a more powerful mode. Ah, no, he's still not human. We get so many rewards, but there's never been a pattern like this. Many players have swallowed spit with difficulty, and dare not look directly at Suban again. Suban's power has really completely exceeded their imagination. Many players from weak countries are no longer actively approaching the battlefield. Never mind. Such a fierce and terrible battle, or leave it to those top strongmen. These cannon fodder yourself, or don't go to the feudal death. But at the same time, countless powerful players are still eager to try it this time. What if the Suban turns into a giant? My attack can destroy even the mountains. Definitely not much worse than Suban. It just so happens that he has become so big now, that is the best moment for us to attack him. He certainly can't dodge our attacks flexibly. Countless dense attacks once again began to concentrate on Suban's Susanoo. Paladins, undead knights, frozen fruit abilities, rustling fruit abilities, etc. Each one is magical. In the real world, look at so many options. Hands are all on display, and people in countless countries are shouting. Start cheering for your country's players. Do you think you'll use magic to attack Suban? Aren't we, the players of John Cow Country, worse than you? Haha, we beat Suban and didn't fight back. Don't look at Suban's abuse of the dish is very cool, but in the face of so many top strong people, you still have to be easily killed. Of course, in the picture. Watching these attacks descend on Susanoo, Suban was still light and breezy. Although these attacks were not enough to say that they were not harmless, at least his second stage of Susanoo could easily resist. Subsequently, Suban controlled Susanoo expressionlessly and launched an attack on Susanoo and the dance of the two swords. Suban's Susanoo directly stretched out two large chakra knives and sent out a knife attack on a woman. In the horrified eyes of the Europa League players, two grand knife chi suddenly arrived and exploded. Its height alone can reach about 10 meters. Brilliant knife chi shines. Divide the crowds of people everywhere they pass. The players scattered in all directions, not daring to collide head-on with these knife chi. Otherwise, they will die without a place to die. And after this sword chi swept through the battlefield, two huge abysses suddenly crossed the ground, like two shocking wounds. In stark contrast to the people running around was the figure of Suban of Susanoo Nakabuchi. He still wrapped his hands around his chest, just faintly looking at the wolf appearance of these ants. The heart is more bored. Such a battle, sure enough, still can't make yourself so excited. Therefore, at this time, the degree of Uchiha Ban's role did not increase rapidly as Suban hoped. These people of the Europa League have to work harder. And powerful players such as the Frozen Fruit ability, the Rust Fruit ability, and the Steel Suit owner can only resist Suban's terrifying sword chi while looking for opportunities to continue to unleash skills on Susanoo. The Cold Ice Breath, the Desert Giant Knife, the guns and shells, etc., continue to pour out. Unfortunately, after seeing that they had attacked Suban for so long and that Suban had not yet lost, they were more and more shocked. You must know that there are so many people against a Suban. If this can't win the victory of destroying the decay, then they are really ashamed. Is his defense so terrifying? How exactly should it be broken? It is estimated that if you don't bomb for an hour, it will be difficult to inflict fatal damage on it. While fighting hard, they began to think hard about how to break Suban's defenses. In the real world. After seeing this scene, the audience of the Dragon Kingdom was of course very proud and very relieved. Haha, our Suban big guy really started the giant mode again. You players simply can't break its defenses, let alone cause damage to it. So many of you have fought so hard to beat one, do you really mean to blow yourself up? If you have the ability to single out, Suban can drop you in a second. No panting at all. It seems that our big guy Suban was all releasing water before. As long as he understands your skills and knows that you are at such a level, he will definitely kill you quickly. Foreign audiences were also gloomy and watery at this time, and they didn't know whether they should say a few hard words. However, the players of their country, at this time, really had no way to cause much harm to Suban. Although they didn't use up all the whole cards, they were still a bit ugly. Of course, in the hearts of the Dragon Kingdom people, they already had not much face now. Anyway, in such a helpless situation at this time, they can only work harder to cheer for their own country's players. In the national embargo, the coalition forces of the five powers continued to fight hard against Suban. In the course of the battle, some people finally discovered one of Suban's weaknesses. Then, in a special way, he secretly told this information to several powerful attackers. I found out. His armor is not all-round protection, it still has flaws. It's obviously just a half-giant. Its bottom, where Suban is located, is the weakness. Get him out now, and then you'll all concentrate your firepower on Su. At this moment, the players of the Five Great Powers Alliance have once again found a glimmer of hope for defeating Suban. Episode 83 The Power of God. Reincarnation Eyes. Ignore the attacks of the ants. In fact, the one who conveyed these important messages was one of the capable people of the five major power alliances. After the sacrifice of his own national fortune, he received a mysterious reward and possessed S-level psychic communication skills. Be able to use psychic communication to talk to your teammates in situations that outsiders can't find out. He was now at the rear of the frontal battlefield, accompanied by several teammates. They do not fight head-on, they look like miscellaneous soldiers on the surface, but they are considered to be the rear think tanks of the five major power alliances. Some people received powerful pupil power rewarded by the national transport embargo, and even obtained the S-level blood inheritance boundary White Eye, so they observed the enemy remotely in this place and collected intelligence on Suban. Although some people are not high in combat effectiveness, they have high IQ and strong adaptability on the spot, so they will be responsible for analysis and formulate combat strategies here. During the battle with Suban, they have been carefully observing, first looking for the characteristics of Suban's battle. Under the brainstorming, the possible weaknesses of Suban were analyzed. Then pass through the person who can communicate mentally, and tell the teammates about this information and countermeasures. Of course, in the process of analyzing the weaknesses of the five-power coalition, Li Ban was also observing them. Suban also kept an eye on several of these enemies. Those are just players with absolute strength. Suban is not very careful in his heart. Because in terms of absolute power, they can never compare with themselves. However, some of the seemingly unique abilities, such as ice fruits, Suban will pay special attention. And among them, a sinister trickery, always showing a sinister smile, has been looking at his own people. Suban is also very careful about this. He is Merlin, the black magician of John Cow country. Suban quickly took control of the chakra knife and attacked him first. Rumble. The knife chi shot out at the man in the black robe. His speed was not so fast, he couldn't avoid Suban's blow. At the same time, his defense was not much stronger, and he was easily knocked hundreds of meters by Suban. Then he fell heavily to the ground. After seeing this scene, Suban was still a little scornful. "Oh, is that all there is to it? Because you are so close, I thought you had some skills." However, as soon as Suban's voice fell, he saw that Merlin, who had been violently hit, actually stood up again. "Hey! This guy seems to have something." In that blow just now, Suban obviously felt that he had broken all his bones, but he could still continue to fight. "Oh, that's kind of interesting. It seems that you really don't have that easy to deal with, then you should show a little skill and please me well. It's not so interesting if you can't kill it." And this black magician, on the other hand, smiled strangely, seemed to be undeterred, and had no fear of Suban. It didn't take long. The rear think tank of the 5 major alliance forces has already come up with a solution to Suban Sasuke's crack. And also informed the relevant strategies to the main attackers in front. The strong people who had the ability to launch an attack on Suban all followed the plan and began to fight again. Use all of your most powerful skills to attack Suban and attract Suban's attention. In it, Lewis, the Sasha fruit power, also turns his own sand into a hand to grab Susanoo's large blue hand and prevent him from continuing to attack the crowd with his sword chi. Jones, who has the ability to freeze the fruit, also eroded Suban's Susanoo hand with the cold breath, trying to slow it down as much as possible. Suban still didn't care about this. With the strength of these mortals, it was impossible to hinder Susanoo's attack. Suban once again held out another pair of hands from behind Susanoo. Rumble. Then cut off these attacks that want to limit your movements. Subsequently, with his 4 chakra hands, he continued to emit a fierce knife chi and attacked these Europa Alliance people. Seeing that Suban, the giant, could produce more hands again, the people fighting were even more shocked. Some cowardly players who were already trembling were even more unstable. The power of the Suban is simply endless. What exactly can such a person do to cause harm to him or even defeat him? The abilities of this group of Dragon Kingdom players cannot be figured out with the thinking of normal people. At this moment, even if it is impossible to restrain Suban's chakra offensive, the 5 major alliance forces can only continue their plans. The paladins of the Galchikan Kingdom will give all the buff they can give to their teammates in need, so that they can use their strength to the extreme. Followed by countless attacks, menacing, suddenly launched from under Suban's feet. Although Suban's Susanoo could not break from the outside, they also thought of a way to break it from the inside. Bang! Bang! Under their frenzied attack, the bottom position of Suban Susanoo began to become unstable. The frozen fruit ability did his best to generate an ice spike from inside Susanoo and attack Suban. Suban raised an eyebrow slightly, quickly dodging this attack. But at the same time, another pile of sand suddenly broke out of the ground, appeared under Suban's feet, and then directly dragged Suban out. The wrestling fruit ability was sweating profusely at this time, and it was difficult to complete this operation. It seemed very simple, but because of the influence of Suban Susanoo, he expended even more physical strength than summoning a sandstorm. At this time, the people of the 5 major alliance forces were overjoyed. They seized this very rare opportunity to pour out their Jokang. Sand, ice, water, light, darkness, and other attributes, all set fire spots. In this instant, countless viewers also exclaimed, "Are they going to completely crack Suban's Susanoo?" Suban was bound to be killed directly without any defense. All of a sudden, countless Dragon Kingdom Kuroko cheered one after another, as if they had seen the scene of Suban's blood splashing on the spot. And at this moment, the Dragon Country audience was also very worried. All kinds of terrible thoughts flashed in my mind. It was the first time I had seen Suban's giant state directly separated from himself. It's over, he really can't do any more defense. Although it is said that it is the power of the gods, once there is no blessing for mankind, Suban will really not be able to support it. At a time when the people of the Dragon Kingdom were worried, Suban, who seemed extremely passive, still had a calm face. His eyes began to quietly change imperceptibly. The eternal kaleidoscope riding wheel eye, which was originally brilliantly patterned, suddenly became a circle of swirls. The power of the six paths, the eye of reincarnation. Sigh. A mysterious force suddenly appeared. Hungry Ghost Road. Seals. Use seal absorption to form a shield to absorb attacks on the 10,000 energy form. Therefore, like various types of magic, attacks that use special energy, such as the ice knife of the frozen fruit, the Sharon roll of the rusty fruit, the thunder power of the hammer of the thunder god, etc., are all directly absorbed by Suban. And at this time, the enemies who were still full of hope and ready to see Suban about to splash blood, but suddenly they were collectively stunned. What's going on? They saw Suban's body very clearly, and when they encountered these attacks, they were safe and unharmed, and they did not suffer much damage. Even to be precise, these attacks are like mud cows entering the sea. Not yet blocked by Suban. Instead, it disappeared very strangely on Suban's body, as if Suban was a black hole. After these energy attacks failed, Suban also quickly left the place where the artillery fire was intensively attacked. Then come to a high hill and continue to look down at the 5 major alliances below, like ants. There was still disdain and indifference in their eyes. Such a strange scene that these players didn't even know what to say before they lost their voices and screamed, this. My god. Did you all just strike with all your might? Of course, it was used, even if it wasn't an all-out attack, it was as good as possible to attack him. Wardfack. But why didn't it seem to work for him at all? I also felt like my attack hit Suban and didn't have any real feeling at all. It seems that there is no successful attack at all, and it directly penetrates his appearance. But it's impossible, we all really saw it, and the attack did hit him. No matter how strong the defense is, at least it can't be like a person who has nothing to do. If that's the case, then what else do we have to fight? Then we might as well just obediently admit defeat, even such a strong attack is like scratching an itch, who can beat this? At this time, the 5 major alliance forces are completely suspicious of life. Suban's strange ability made them unable to figure it out at all. The audience outside the reality was also shocked. They all discussed in disbelief, what is going on, and what insidious means are your country's Suban using? Such a powerful attack, can you still ignore it? This is too much, and the opening and hanging cannot be opened so excessively. It's no longer a matter of whether the defense is strong or not, it's a complete disregard for these attacks. I seriously demand that the national transport embargo be eliminated from these coercions, otherwise we will not be able to fight at all. How can you mortal bodies withstand these attacks? This is clearly open and hanging. Before you spewed fire and summoned giants or something, at least you could understand that Suban still had to use the same intensity of attacks to counteract the terrorist attacks of other fierce beasts, but now you just ignore it. How can we play? At this time, the mentality of foreigners will collapse. If the previous insults to the Dragon Kingdom people were open and hanging, or chaotic black, then at this time, scolding Suban to open and hang is the truth. Because in addition to opening and hanging, this really can't explain Suban's strange ability. This Suban is completely invincible. At this time, although the hearts of the Dragon Kingdom people were very happy, they shouted, Suban cattle beep. It seems that the battle of their Dragon Kingdom players will always be smooth sailing. Such an awe-inspiring Suban will indeed always be hidden. It's not even known how many whole cards he'll have left unexposed. So they all started talking triumphantly. You still think about the benefits, maybe our Suban can't really ignore these attacks, that is, his own special ability, he can ignore them 5 or 6 times. Maybe you can barely seize a few more opportunities, and you will have a chance to really hurt a Suban, haha. On the good side, maybe you still managed to cause 1% of the damage to our Suban gangster. Keep up the good work, one day sooner or later, this damage will be visible to the naked eye. At this time, the Dragon Kingdom people were once again full of confidence in Suban. The so-called 5-Nation Alliance also seems to have become a ragtag crowd, and it is insignificant at all. Maybe just because of Suban's defense, they couldn't break through. How could he possibly defeat Suban? Of course, although there are countless people who are here to emotionally pour out their emotions. But there are still rational people who begin to analyze the problem carefully. Slow down. Everyone found out that there were many cracks on Suban's face after being hit by the black coffin of the washing duck player. Is this his special form? Did the washer duck player knock out his hidden state? Abominable washed duck, are you deliberately conspiring with the enemy country? You're adding buff to someone else in this black coffin, right? It wouldn't be Suban casting some evil spell to let his soul stay directly in this world, so we can't hurt him no matter how we fight. When I think of this, foreigners are even more bitter. Although all this is their brain supplement, they do feel that it is very reasonable. Of course, these foreigners' analysis. In fact, there are still some problems. After all, they didn't know anything about Suban's reincarnation eyes and his rebirth in the dirt. So a lot of the analysis is full of errors. And at this time, in the rear of the 5 major alliance forces, a player with white eyes also found that Suban's eye state was wrong at this time. Suban's eyes at this time were no longer in a red-eyed state, but had become gray-white reincarnation eyes. After discovering this key point, he immediately began to talk to his teammates about the players who stayed at the back of the battlefield and immediately began to discuss them. What is said is this eye is really wrong. What the hell is the Suban? Why can he have so many strange eyes? Could it be the source of his mysterious power again? That's right, when he turns on the giant mode, his eyes seem to really explode with extremely strong power. Is this really the power brought by the eyes? Other cultivators who breathe fire and water, I can understand that this cultivation I can summon this strange pattern. What the hell is it? The people of the Dragon Kingdom are indeed all pretending to be gods and ghosts. If the previous red eye state was able to summon giants, what is the white-eyed state at this time? Is it just ignoring the attack? Then that's too buggy. Who can beat him? However, after the initial collapse of mentality, they also quickly calmed down and began to rationally analyze the way to defeat Suban. They carefully analyzed Suban's intelligence and slowly approached the truth. I think that Suban should not be able to ignore all attacks, otherwise, then we certainly don't have to fight. That's right. I found that all he had ignored before were the various energy attacks that arrived first, such as ice, light, thunder and lightning, etc. But later, when Alessandro and others attacked, he left the spot immediately. Therefore, he is biased towards the attack of the immune spell system, but the physical attack of reality should not be ignored. Subsequently, they also began to discuss Suban's eternal kaleidoscope riding wheel eye, and the difference between the reincarnation eye. Also, Suban has 2 different eyes, which can be used to use different combat states. His current white-eyed state should not be able to use the giant before. But you can ignore a lot of energy attacks. So our players should use physical attacks to deal with Suban. It could work wonders. It didn't take long for the think tanks of the 5 major alliance forces to finally come up with quite practical suggestions. Players who can master psychic communication immediately begin to convey this information remotely to the main attackers in front of them. The main attackers who were still secretly screaming, at this time, they were barely able to use the magic type attack. Do I have to use physical attacks? At this time, Alessandro, who possessed the hammer of Thor, immediately stood up. Oh, isn't that a coincidence? Then I relied on Thor's hammer, and I should have hurt him. Germanic Iron Man is also eager to try. Then my shell should also be able to launch a fatal political attack on Suban. The 5-Nation Coalition, I feel like I'm doing it again. Episode 84 Open Hanging Sue Spot. Unlimited Resurrection Coins. Infinite Twins. After discussing a way to deal with Suban, the crowd said excitedly, that's right, your physical attacks can definitely cause damage to Suban. Our energy attack can also be launched according to the situation. Even if Suban can really ignore it, there must be certain conditions, and it can't be launched at any time, right? At least increase his consumption as much as possible. All of us are assisting you physics warriors. With this in mind, they immediately began to go all out. The 2 contestants with the steel suit and the Thor's hammer artifact flew into the air together, and they maintained a state of high-speed movement, carefully looking for Suban's weakness. After seeing that they seemed to be doing something new again, Suban came a little bit of rice. I hope these ants don't do Oda's move again. Don't let yourself continue to be disappointed. And next, Jones, the capable one, flew into the air, frozen the ice spear next to him, and then quickly fired it at his opponent. Ice Cube 2-spine spear. And Lewis turned his arm into a huge sand blade, and through high-frequency vibration, he gave this sand giant blade extremely powerful cutting ability. Boom! His desert sword could even cut the ground straight away. The paladins of the Gaullese Chicken Kingdom played a qualified auxiliary role. Holy light, guardian blessing. Anger uses the gifts of the gods to bless their own or teammates' weapons, enhancing their resistance to all their abnormal states, while improving their attack power, defense, and speed in all aspects. In addition, countless powerful players have also worked together, each showing their magic. Boom. Boom. Densely packed, various types of attacks attacked, once again shrouded Su's spots. In order to be able to cover their teammates, they really had to work very hard to barely distract Suban's attention. Of course, these things could not hit Suban and were avoided by Suban. Even the reincarnation eye skill does not need to be used. Even when there is time, you can also put a few fire escapes and dragons to sing songs, which makes the 5 major alliance forces extremely embarrassed. And after some pestering, each of them was out of breath. This Su spot is in the state of the reincarnation eye, which is no worse than the state of the eternal kaleidoscope riding wheel eye. The grasp of the movement of the battlefield is all hand to hand. Therefore, the coalition forces of the 5 powers will have to make an incomparably huge effort just to pretend to attack and win the opportunity for others to attack. The 5-power alliance could only work together, and in the case of countless powerful attacks at the same time, Suban was forced to fall from the sky from the high platform and prepare to return to the ground. At this moment, a figure flew towards Suban, who was still in midair, at a speed that could not be concealed. Along the way, the thunder and lightning are extremely windy. Whoosh! It turned into a brilliant white lightning bolt, and the speed had exceeded the speed of sound. He is Alexandro with Thor's hammer. Suban saw that he was inconvenient to fly around in midair. It was not easy to dodge the attack of this Thor's hammer, and he could not absorb it with the reincarnation eye, so he immediately began to use ninjutsu. Fire escape, fire extinguishing technique. A pillar of fire with condensed energy to the extreme quickly burst out, with an unstoppable posture, sweeping forward like a cannon of flames. But Alessandro still did not shy away, and passed directly through this long pillar of fire. Phew! After possessing Thor's hammer, his physical qualities were greatly improved, and his resistance to flames was also greatly enhanced. Briefly withstanding Suban's fire attack was still no problem. This pillar of fire is golden and dazzling, emitting a terrifying heat that can burn a person to ashes in an instant. But Alessandro grinned and endured hard. In the end, Alessandro broke through Suban's pillar of fire attack and risked crashing into Suban. Countless Western countries, especially the Washer Ducks, are worried about Alessandro and applaud him loudly. Hopefully, he must defeat Suban. Soon, with the blink of an eye, Thor's hammer slammed into Suban. Under the heavy hammer of Alessandro, the powerful impact sounded all over the battlefield. This sound surprised and delighted the 5 major alliances. It was clear that their attack had finally worked. Suban really couldn't defend against these physical attacks. In their surprised eyes, Suban's body suddenly retreated by hundreds of meters. It was hit hard to the ground. Thundered. A mighty wave of shock air rippled out. The people around are even more overjoyed. It seems that their attack can definitely seriously injure Suban. And after that, other people's attacks also came. Desert Giant. Ice Giant Bird. Cross of Light. The place where Suban was located instantly became like hell, shrouded in various attacks, one after another. Originally, under the blow of Thor's hammer, Suban's body had already appeared in many places. Coupled with the attacks of countless players, Suban's body seemed to become a lonely boat in the sea, and it was tragically destroyed. And in the excited eyes of countless players, they all truly saw that this Suban's body had been completely broken. Then, they immediately shouted excitedly, "Fantastic, Suban was finally defeated by us. Haha, it must have been the hammer I just took to make his body basically shattered. My frozen attack must have been very effective, making his body directly brittle. Don't forget that the holy light I gave you has helped to significantly improve your quality in all aspects, otherwise this Alessandro would not have been able to burst out at such an astonishing speed for a short time. My missile roll is also very powerful. This is a physical attack developed by humans, and it seems that there is really no way to absorb it by him, in the real world." At this time, the Europa players are completely immersed in the carnival, thinking that they can finally defeat Suban and successfully divide the rich rewards of Suban and the Dragon Kingdom. Seeing this scene of the Dragon Kingdom, the audience was also instantly like dead ash. What's going on? How did the Suban gangster get solved so quickly? Could it be that after the giant mode, his body is really a weakness, so why he will be besieged and killed by so many people? Oh my god, what kind of punishment will we be punished by the Dragon Council? It's so unfair that so many of them are besieging Suban. The invincible Suban gangster, is it really such a failure? At a time when countless people were frustrated, some people also tried their best to comfort the lost Dragon Kingdom people. We shouldn't be too depressed, at least Suban is not a real death, of course, he can continue to participate in the national embargo. We may also be punished a little. After all, Suban's people have won us a lot of rewards before. I also made a lot of money. These abominable Western devils. When there is a chance, we must let Suban completely solve them, do not give them so many people the opportunity to beat them. The next time you see them in the national embargo, you must bury them completely. And at this time, the people of the Dragon Kingdom also thought of the existence of other players. If only there were pillars in this place. Pillar Jian was absolutely able to fight alongside Suban and didn't recognize their mothers. Yes, Suban and Zhu Jian are definitely the best partners, they are together, absolutely invincible in the world. It's not easy for Suban to be able to fight to the current level, we should still applaud him. The emotions of the Dragon Kingdom people at this time can be described as extremely complicated. At a time when countless people were plunged into extremely extreme emotions of great joy and great sorrow, an indifferent voice suddenly reappeared in the National Games arena. Have you guys had enough of laughing? An instant. The heartbeat of the 5 major alliance forces missed a beat, and the expression on their faces seemed to be frozen into ice sculptures, and they once again looked at the source of the sound in shock. It's Suban. He stood again on the high platform. With a gaze that looked down on all sentient beings, he coldly stared at the 5 major alliances. Seeing Suban suddenly reappear, all the players and the audience were completely stunned. What's going on? Didn't they just beat Suban into a pool of mud? Why is he still standing up? The crowd cast their incredulous eyes on the corpse of Suban just now. It was found that the Suban, who had been beaten by everyone, had turned into a pile of rotten wood. What they had just defeated was only a wooden doppelganger of Suban, and Suban continued to calmly say, although they didn't really defeat me, they could barely do it to this point. Suban said and looked at Alessandro, who possessed Thor's hammer. Your guys' speed and defense are still pretty good. However, if only it could be faster and stronger, it would be better. Hearing Suban's words, the people of the 5 Great Powers Alliance were all like dead ashes. Listening to Suban's tone, has Suban been teasing them all the time? Their desperate attack, for Suban, is it just a game-like battle? Alessandro gritted his teeth and asked, why? Why can you do this? Are you alive or dead? How many lives do you really have? Are you illusory or real? His question at this time also represents the doubts of the entire Europa League. Suban is either not a normal living person, or has multiple lives, or some magical skill. It's really confusing. Of course, Suban ignored their hoarse questioning. Suban didn't have to explain anything to them. Only by making them feel the most desperate emotions can they restore the famous scene of Uchiha Ban to the greatest extent. Let Uchiha Bane play to the highest level. Unlock even more powerful powers. All you need to know is that I am the true god, and that's it. I just hope that you can fight a little bit, so that I can get a more pleasant dance. Suban's words, word by word, are loud and clear. In the real world. After seeing this scene, countless Dragon Kingdom audiences finally breathed a sigh of relief. Ha 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 ha. Ban Yi is too strong. Foreigners are too weak. Let me laugh wildly for a minute. I just said that Suban is so powerful, how can he be solved so quickly? Yeah, just watching the battle was so intense, we all almost forgot about the super strong doppelganger ability of Suban. Yeah, such a strong guy, we Suban can at least make 10. I have so many doppelgangers, I can easily torture and kill B-level fierce beasts. Dealing with these people is not a problem at all. Then again, I don't know when Suban used this doppelganger. Was it the beginning of the doppelganger, or was it not long ago? Under the discussion of everyone, Suban's image became more and more unpredictable. Haha, I'm a little confused when I say this, but I'm Suban's face powder, staring at Suban all the time, and I haven't found anything wrong with this body. True and false, false and true, you will never be able to guess God's opinion. Maybe the one who was just talking was still not Suban's real body. You think you defeated the first layer of Suban, but in fact he only showed the second layer, and his body is in the atmosphere. Ban YYDS. Of course, at this time, foreigners are extremely angry. They continue to desperately fight for this godlike figure of the Black Su spot. Do you Dragon Kingdom players want to be so excessive? Obviously they are already so unreasonable, and now they have to tell me that there are so many doppelgangers. Are you playing a single-player game? This is all the setting of the resurrection coin. It's like the Kryptonian player in the online game, others can only have one life, but you can easily get countless powerful equipment, and even countless lives, so how can others play? A person who is facing the encirclement and suppression of the entire guild in the game can still deal with it calmly. How do you say others play like this? I believe you say you're a GM. It's the programmer who modified the game data directly, otherwise, how could such a terrible skill be realized? How does this make us play with other players? Don't you want as many doppelgangers as you want? How can this be targeted? It took a while to analyze your weaknesses, but you were lonely. It's endless. Shouldn't you kill one doppelganger, and there will be more and more doppelgangers in the future? I can't kill it at all. It is normal for these people to have such a big opinion of Suban. After all, Suban's means at this time can indeed be said to be a godlike move. It is not too much to say that it is extremely affecting the gaming experience of others. It's really that others can't play. With all my strength, only one doppelganger was killed, and now there are more and more doppelgangers. So they still spanked? Admit defeat early. At this time in the arena of national luck. Although many players are confused. But among so many players, there are still many people with great intelligence. For example, through the country's barrage or something, I have obtained some of Suban's ability information. Therefore, after the analysis of the think tank, the psychic communicators immediately began to communicate with everyone through the way of psychic communication. I've heard before that this should be a doppelganger skill of Suban. Don't panic, this can be explained. Although I don't know how to deal with it, but at least we did. Let's try to keep an eye on him to see if we can see through so many of his doppelgangers. If you really can't do it, you can only see one fight after another. Let's hope his doppelgangers are numerous. As he spoke, he himself felt unable to convince himself, and could only barely find some reasons for these players to continue to pluck up their courage and fight Suban. At this time, Suban had just been broken into a wooden doppelganger, and he also began to think about how to deal with the people of the Five Great Powers Alliance next. And make your next battle more fun. If the pillars were in this place, what would they do to you? Oh, so let me play with this wooden escape. After speaking, Suban immediately began to seal his hands again. The birth of the tree realm. The next moment, dense trees suddenly began to sprout underground, and there was an earth-shattering sound of earthquakes. Rumble. This made countless people in the Europa League stunned. What's going on? What the hell is this? Could it be an earthquake attack? Before they could be surprised for long, countless huge tree vines began to rise from the ground and continue to grow vigorously. Any one placed on the earth are towering trees. Under Suban's control, the wooden chakra exploded and surged out in a steady stream. The tree seemed to have a life and began to have a purpose, rushing towards the people of the Europa League. Boom! The Europa League players were already stunned, as if looking at a monster, trembling, and their thighs were involuntarily shivering. Fear swept over them. I also remembered the fear when I was dominated by the Sea of Fire of Suban before. Episode 85 Fire Escapes and Tree Realms. Unify the world. Europa sacrifices the fortunes of the country desperately. At this time, the 5 major alliance forces were as surprised as if countless thunders had exploded overhead. Scared. Like the previous Sea of Fire, it was a completely unstoppable attack that destroyed the world and overwhelmed the earth. Only this time it was replaced by a sea of trees. Even the Dragon Kingdom audience, at this time, while extremely happy, was also extremely confused. Sleeper, isn't this the skill of another big guy between the columns? Why did it appear on the body of the Suban gangster? Do they still share skills? I originally thought that this wood-based skill was very in line with the gentle personality between the pillars, and should be his exclusive skill, but I didn't expect that even Suban had mastered it. Suban's fiery personality, it should be the flame that is the most suitable for him. Using these wood-based skills, it seems a bit out of place. I'm confused, and I don't know if I can master such a terrifying flame attack from Suban. Is there a Suban stealing between the pillars, or between the pillars stealing Suban? While the people of the Dragon Kingdom were excited, they also sighed at Suban's attack, and Suban was really a person who could never see through the bottom. No one knows what cards he has not shown. In just a few moments of fighting, countless powerful skills have been demonstrated, and these Europa Alliance people are helpless. Seeing the desperate faces of the 5 major alliance forces in the picture, the Dragon Nation people were all enjoying it. As for the foreign audience, they are habitual and continue to start a mental breakdown. In the major platforms, their spit and insults rise and fall, and they can't stop at all. The opening and hanging of your Dragon Kingdom players is really endless. What is this? Can even other people's skills be learned? Isn't this what it is?